1293, page 1294, page 1295, page 1296, page 1297, page 1298, page 1299, page 1300, page 1301, page 1302, page 1303. Senator B.K. Amos, Gombe South.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name is Senator B.K. Amos. I represent the good people of Gombe South. I rise to move that the vote on proceedings of Wednesday, the 17th February 2021, move that adopted. I so move. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Distinguished Senator Cleopas Zo.
Thank you, Mr. President, and my highly distinguished colleagues. My name remains Distinguished Senator Cleopas Moses. I'm privileged to represent the very blessed people of Bayelsa Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, I rise to second the motion that the votes and proceedings of Wednesday, 17 February 2021 be adopted, most especially for the fact that we have gone through it page by page, article by article, and a true reflection of what transpired on that day. I so second, sir.
What can I say? This is I think that's a very brilliant one. Thank you for that elaborate way to second the motion. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the votes and proceedings of Wednesday, the 17th of February 2021 be approved, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The votes and proceedings of Wednesday, 17th February 2021 is hereby approved. Letter from distinguished Senator Oluremi S. Tinubu OON, Chairman, Committee on Communications. Your Excellency, notice of public hearing. Please recall that the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria at its plenary session on 5th May 2020 mandated its Joint Committee on Communications, Science and Technology, ICT and Cyber Crimes, and Primary Healthcare and Communicable Diseases to investigate the status of 5G network in Nigeria and its technological impact on Nigerian citizens, and referred same to the Joint Committee for further legislative action. However, due to the prevailing COVID-19 pandemic at the time of referral, the Joint Committee was only able to receive memoranda from relevant stakeholders pending schedule of the public hearing. To this effect, the Joint Committee hereby seizes this opportunity to invite distinguished senators, stakeholders, and the general public to a one-day investigative public hearing slated for Thursday, 25th February 2021 in the Senate Conference Room 022, Senate New Building at 2 p.m. prompt. Stakeholders are enjoined to forward their memoranda to the Joint Committee Secretariat in Room SB 61, Senate Wing, White House Building, National Assembly Complex, Abuja, on or before Wednesday, 24th February 2021. Please accept the renewed assurances of my kindest regards. Sincerely, Senator Oluremi S. Tinubu, OAN, Chairman, Joint Committee. Birthday announcement. Today, 18th February, is the birthday of distinguished Senator Danju Mala, representing Kaduna South. On behalf of the Senate, I wish our distinguished brother, friend, and colleague, Senator Danju Mala, a happy birthday, long life, prosperity, and many more years of service to our fatherland. Congratulations. Petitions. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the first business of the day is the presentation of our bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Ike Ekoramadu on the Institute of Mediators and Conciliators Establishment Bill 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Institute of Mediators and Reconciliators Establishment Bill 2021, SB 213, first reading.
Institute of Mediators and Conciliators Establishment Bill 2021, SB 213, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the second business of the day is the presentation of our bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Estefani Dungyang on the University of Broadcasting and Film Studies JOS Establishment Bill 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, University of Broadcasting and Film Studies JOS Establishment Bill 2021, SB 406, first reading.
University of Broadcasting and Film Studies JOS Establishment Bill 2021, SB 406, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the third business of the day is the presentation of our bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Peter Nwaboshi on the Niger Delta Development Commission NDDC Act 2000 Amendment Bill 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Niger Delta Development Commission NDDC Act 2000 Amendment Bill 2021, SB 637, first reading.
Niger Delta Development Commission NDDC Act 2000 Amendment Bill 2021, SB 637, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fourth business of the day is the presentation of our bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Patrick Ayo Akinyelure on the Federal University of Technology Akure Teaching Hospital Establishment Bill 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal University of Technology Akure Teaching Hospital Establishment Bill 2021, SB 638, first reading.
Leader, who is this? The sponsor of the bill is here. Federal University of Technology, Akure Teaching Hospital. Akure Teaching Hospital, huh? Okay. Sorry? Yeah. Federal University of Technology, Akure Teaching Hospital Establishment Bill 2021, SB 638, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fifth business of the day is the presentation of our bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Patrick Abba Moro on the Families of Fallen Servicemen Support Fund Establishment Bill 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Families of Fallen Servicemen Support Fund Establishment Bill 2021, SB 345, first reading.
Families of Fallen Servicemen Support Fund Establishment Bill 2021, SB 345, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the first order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the report of the Committee on Finance on the screening of Barrister Victor Chinemerem Moruako for appointment as Chairman, Fiscal Responsibility Commission. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Solomon Adiola, Chairman of the Committee on Finance, to move the motion for the presentation and consideration of the report.
Chairman, Committee on Finance, Senator Adiola Solomon Olamile.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleague, Adiola Solomon Olamileko, representing Lagos West. May I move that this Senate do receive the report of the Committee on Finance on the report of confirmation of appointment of the Chairman of Fiscal Responsibility Commission. Mr. President, distinguished colleague, I so move.
Senator Bella Mandia, you can second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Bello Mandia, resident of North South. I rise to move that the Senate do receive the report on the confirmation of the appointment of the Chairman of Fiscal Responsibility Commission as moved by the Chairman.
Is received and consider. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate do receive and consider the report of our Committee on Finance, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Chairman, you may lead the report.
Mr. President, very distinguished.
Please use your mic.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the report of the screening of the Chairman, Fiscal Responsibility Commission. The Senate at its sitting on Wednesday, 10 February 2021, consider and refer the request of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for confirmation of the appointment of the Chairman, Fiscal Responsibility Commission to the Committee on Finance. The presidential nominee is Barrister Victor Muruako. Page 1, 2.0, the membership, 3.0, the methodology, 4.0 of the nominee, resume of the nominee, 4.1, has to do with the chairman, the introduction of the chairman, Barrister Victor Murukoro, who is a barrister of law, born on the 26th January 1965, and has been in acting capacity in the agency for almost 3 years. a former legal advisor to the former Speaker of the House. He graduated from the University of Imo in 1993. His working experience started from NAFCON on rivers between 1993 to 1994. And also before his nomination as chairman, he was the secretary / the acting chief executive of the commission from 2003 to date. 4.0 also, we have the observation of the committee, which include 1, the composition of the Fiscal Responsibility Commission, FRC, is lopsided. There is need to have a full board members for it to become fully functional. 2, the Fiscal Responsibility Commission should normalize the domestication of their laws with State Fiscal Responsibility Commission. The Fiscal Responsibility Commission should engage State Governors Forum to allow State Fiscal Commission agency to function properly. The nominee has been cleared by the police and the State Security Services and possesses Code of Conduct acknowledgement slip. He has no petition against him before the committee, and going by his cognate working experience, he is suitably qualified and competent to be appointed as chairman of Fiscal Responsibility Commission. The committee recommendation. 1, the presidency should constitute the board of Fiscal Responsibility Commission with 1 representative from each of the 6 geopolitical zones and 1 from the civil society organization, in accordance with the act setting up the Fiscal Responsibility Commission under section 5(1), A, B, C, and D. 2, the committee recommend that the Senate do confirm the nomination of Barrister Victor Muraoku as the chairman, Fiscal Responsibility Commission. Conclusion. The committee wishes to sincerely express appreciation to the Senate President, leadership, and the entire Senate for the opportunity to serve in this capacity. I so submit.
Any comments? Okay, I have some few comments to make. Yes, leader.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I have gone through the act that set up the Fiscal Responsibility Commission. And one of my major observations is that appointment by the chairman, even though it has been noted by the report of the committee, but I think we should make it very important that the observation is going to be very important, that the chairman by himself cannot actually run the commission unless he's accompanied by the membership of the commission. So it is really futile to just send us a nomination of the chairman without the full complement of the membership. Therefore, I think without any prejudice to the person that has been appointed because he's competent and qualified, I think it's important for us to write or step down this particular nomination until all the other ones have been brought in. Therefore, I move that we stand down, so that to avoid this kind of thing happening in the future. I vote that without prejudice to the person, we stand down this confirmation until the full complement of the commission is brought before the Senate. I so move.
The leader, we listen to the chairman, what his explanation is.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleague, I want to thank the leader, but the leader have also said that in my report, I have made this critical observation. But sir, long before now, this committee needs to start functioning. And I agree with Mr. Speaker. We can go ahead confirming why telling the commissar, why writing to the presidency to give the list of other members of the commission, so that we don't just go and keep this agency without anybody directing the affairs. Within 1 or 2 weeks, the presidency can forward the name and we confirm them and we return it to the Senate for confirmation. For us to step down and ask this person not to be confirmed and everything, we will not be doing justice to the nominee that is before us. Yeah, it will work.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairman. DSP, I'm coming. Let me make this remark. If we don't do the confirmation, and I agree completely, in fact, I'll make my comment still. If we don't confirm, this person will still be acting. So it makes little or no difference, really. We do the confirmation. We insist the chairman does not constitute the commission, because the commission is supposed to have the full complements of what the law says. So we do the confirmation, and we write to the executive to nominate the remaining people to form the commission. But let me also remark here that this acting thing, the man has acted for about 7 years, in fact over 7 years. And yet this commission, personally I don't know what they're doing. What are they doing? So the chairman, when he's confirmed, now chairman designate, has a huge and massive responsibility to turn around this commission for it to perform efficiently and effectively. Otherwise, for him to be there 7 years acting, and then 4 years, that will be 11 years, running that commission, probably he did it as a sole administrator over the years, and it's simply not acceptable, because the Fiscal Responsibility Commission is such an important commission that we need to have everybody who is supposed to be there, and they have to sit up, especially the man who will lead this. He has sufficient experience, been there for 7 years as an acting chairman. So I want to plead with us, please, that instead of just putting it down, we should go ahead and confirm, because even if we put it down, this person will continue to act. So let him be there with our endorsement, but we want an expeditious action from the side of the executive to give us the remaining nominees for us to screen. Thank you, DSP.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ovi Omo Agege, Delta Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, it does appear clearly that you've already ruled, you know, and we're not going to be going against your ruling. So mine will be an observation, clearly. But I'd like to make this observation, sir. I don't believe that it is the intent of Mr. President to nominate a sole administrator. Clearly, that cannot be his intention. This is a commission. This commission is entitled to its full complement of members. And my view, without prejudice to the ruling you just gave, would have been, and also without prejudice to the man's qualifications, because clearly he's qualified, would have been for this to be put on hold while we await Mr. President to bring the other member. That would be my view, but like I said, Mr. President, you've already ruled. You've already ruled that we go ahead and make confirmation. But I would have preferred, sir, because going ahead to do this right now is validating the sole administratorship that this guy has enjoyed for the past 7 years. And it is wrong, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
Well, the distinguished colleagues, let me say this. I think as a compromise, we go ahead and do the confirmation. We don't communicate the confirmation. We get the remaining nominees, and I'm sure this is something that within this week could happen. So we go ahead and do the confirmation. But to leave it and turn it down, to me, it's not making any difference, honestly. Senator James Manager.
Mr. President, my highly respected colleagues, James Ibiawo, Manager, Director. Mr. President, listening to both sides of the argument, it is very clear. Mr. Chairman, sir, my chair, I understand you. The man has been there in acting capacity for 7 years. Now only his name has been submitted, presented for us to screen and clear as chairman of the commission without the members. It is an ugly story. Very, very dirty story. However, what do we do? I will suggest not stepping down, not screening or clearing the man. We clear the man, but you have the responsibility, sir. You have the responsibility to convey, not in writing, but talking to Mr. President of the Federation, that this is the situation. Somebody somewhere is playing the game. Somebody somewhere is clearly playing the game, which is not correct. And that is why we are here. So seek audience with the President and discuss this matter with him so that we can get the full complement of this particular commission, which is very, very key. We go ahead, clear the man, but you have the responsibility of conveying how we feel to Mr. President. Thank you.
Senator Valana.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues. It's very difficult to disagree with my brother and friend, distinguished Senator James Obiang, the manager of the Senate. Mr. President, I always want us to err on the side of law. The ruling and the running of the Senate is not left to our whims and caprices. We are guided by law and the Constitution. I have had the privilege of reading the provisions of the Fiscal Responsibility Bill. When we made that law, there was nowhere we specifically said that the appointments must be done at once. Nowhere. All we said is that the commission should have a chairman and then members from the 6th geopolitical zone to constitute the body. That is the position of the law. And I remind each and every one of us here that the rules of engagement between us and those who elected us into this office is the oath of office we took on that very day, that we will uphold, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the law. So if the Fiscal Responsibility Bill does not say that the President must make this appointment at once, I am unable to find the wisdom of not confirming the name submitted to the Senate if he has met the legal requirement to be confirmed as the chairman. Again, don't forget that we are running a democracy, the principle of which is guided by separation of powers. We cannot do our work and do that of Mr. President. So it is sufficient for us, for example, for the committee to bring a report and say that the Fiscal Responsibility Commission has not been duly constituted. Then we now have the legal basis to proceed to tell Mr. President that he's under obligation to do so. So as far as I'm concerned, based on the guidance and the oath of office we have taken, until there is sufficient ground for us to reject the confirmation of this nominee, I do not think that it will be wise and legislatively expedient for us to renege from doing so. So my own position is, let us go strictly by the law. We cannot accuse another body in government of not following the law, and then we sit here again and we will not follow it, no matter how bitter we are. So with due respect, my colleagues, let us confirm, based on the committee's recommendation, the appointment of the chairman of Fiscal Responsibility Bill. And I think what we have said today should be a sufficient guidance to the other arm of government to understand the fact that both we and them have taken an oath of office on behalf of Nigerians that we will comply with the content and spirit of our Constitution and the law. Thank you very much, sir.
Senator Gabriel Susam, you raise your hand.
Mr. President, I think Bala Naala has finished the matter. So I'll just concur with what he has said. Yeah.
Okay, distinguished colleagues, let me summarize very briefly the position canvassed. that we should go ahead and do the confirmation. Of course, sufficient legal explanation has been given by Senator Balana Allah and others. But I want to reiterate that for someone to act for 7 years, I think so much is expected of that person if he would now be confirmed. We expect that we'll do the confirmation, and unlike the proposal by my brother, the manager of the Senate, that I should personally go and discuss this with Mr. President, this is an official matter. We can write, because this is supposed to be in our records, because that is what our committee recommended. So we'll write to Mr. President to inform him and advise that the President should send the names of the other proposed members of the commission so that we're able to also screen them. And if we find them fit and proper, we confirm them accordingly. So this will go into the committee of the whole to do the approval. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, I rise to move the motion for this distinguished chamber to resolve into the committee of the whole to consider the report of the Committee of Finance. I so move.
Minority Leader, leave the leader alone, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now that the leader has withdrawn his motion and put...
The leader never...
The leader, unlike what the minority leader is saying, the leader has not withdrawn the motion. But the debate in the chamber defeated the motion of the leader. And the leader has accepted and surrendered to the wisdom of the chamber.
Minority Leader, second the motion, please.
Thank you. Now that the leader has accepted the wisdom of the majority of members, I hereby second his motion.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion moved by the leader and seconded by the minority leader, the Senate resolves into committee of the whole to consider the report of our Committee on Finance. Say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, we do approval now. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Barrister Victor Chinerem Morocco for appointment as Chairman, Fiscal Responsibility Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I rise to move a motion for the chair to move back to plenary to report progress.
Thank you, Mr. President. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate reverse to plenary for the chair to report progress say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate in the Committee of the Whole considered the report of the Committee on Finance on the screening of Mr. President's nominee for appointment as Chairman, Fiscal Responsibility Commission, FRC, and approved the nomination of Barrister Victor Chinemerem Morocco as Chairman, Fiscal Responsibility Commission, FRC. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Thank you. Confirmation. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Barrister Victor Chinemerem Morocco for appointment as Chairman, Fiscal Responsibility Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Barrister Victor Chinemerem Morocco is hereby confirmed as Chairman, Fiscal Responsibility Commission, FRC. Congratulations to him, Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the second order of the day is the second reading of the Federal Medical Center Establishment Bill 2021. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Wednesday, 10th February 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the distinguished Senator Aishatu Airu Ahmed to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Senator Aishatu Ahmed Dahiru Binani.
Thank you, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues. I'm Aishatu Airu Ahmed Binani, representing Adama Central. I rise to move that the bill for an act to establish the Federal Medical Center's second reading to be read. Shall I just continue?
Yeah, you may go ahead. Please use your mic.
Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, permit me to remind you that federal medical centers are tertiary health care services provided by the federal government in states that do not have university teaching hospitals. The major objectives for this category of health care services is to handle such cases that the primary health care by the local governments and the secondary health care by state government are not able to handle. The federal medical centers were to, 1, provide advanced equipment and facilities for diagnosis, curative, promotive, and rehabilitative services in medical treatment. 2, be constructed, equipped, maintained, and operated in the light of providing training schools and institutions necessary for providing advanced healthcare services. 3, have laboratories, research, and experimental stations necessary for the efficient national health services delivery. As noble as those objectives are, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, there is no enabling law to back, support, and propel speculative outcomes for the benefit of Nigerians. The absence of a legal framework for the regulations, development, and management of federal medical centers to set standards for rendering health services has hindered the provisions of intensive, effective, and efficient healthcare services to the people of Nigeria. This has led to a number of challenges in this health sector, including but not limited to underfunding, weak facilities and infrastructure, poor motivation of health workers, low budget, weak accountability, conflict with the potential structure of the states, and industrial strike, which has led to inadequacies, shortcomings, and weaknesses which hinder effective healthcare delivery services. This bill will provide such enabling environment that will facilitate, 1, provision of general policies and guidelines relating to major expansion program of the medical centers, the management and intenders of the affairs of the medical centers. 3, the powers to make, alter, and revoke rules and regulations for carrying on the functions of the medical centers. 4, the fixing of terms and conditions of service, including remuneration of the employee of the medical centers, which will check the exodus of our doctors and nurses, especially when we are faced with the fact that 77% of black doctors in the US are Nigerians, and there is rarely any top medical institution in the US or Europe where you don't find Nigerians managing at the top level. Hardly a year passes without a major national strike by nurses, doctors, or health consultants. The major reason for those strikes are poor salaries and lack of government investment in the health sector. 5, the establishment of a board for each medical center shall ensure that the standard of teaching provided at all establishments under its control and the standard of treatment and care provided for patients at those establishments do not fall below those usually provided by similar establishments of international repute. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I am fully persuaded that the passage of this bill will go a long way in solving the following problems in the system. 1, reduce the number of Nigerians who have to go to other countries for medical care. An average of 20,000 Nigerians travel to India each year for medical assistance due to the absence of a solid healthcare system at the home. Improve on the persistent rate of avoidable death of all Nigerians. A recent UNICEF report has it that preventable or treatable diseases such as malaria, pneumonia, diarrhea, measles, and HIV account for more than 70% of the estimated 1 million under 5 deaths in Nigeria. 3, have the right data. We need improvement to the health information system, regular and sustainable population and health facility-based survey. 4, centralized management of the many challenges of the 23 medical centers in the country. Finally, this bill has no consequential financial burden on government as the medical centers are already in place, drawing funds from government. The bill only seeks to provide legal backing for their operation. I therefore call on all members of this hallowed chamber to support this bill. Thank you.
Senator Ibrahim Yahya Oluragbe.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name is Ibrahim Yahya Oluragbe. I represent Kwara Central Senatorial District.
Chief Whip. Chief Whip. Senator Adiola, you are not answering your name. You are the Chief Whip today now.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I'd like to first of all thank my distinguished colleague, Senator Aisha Dairu, for coming up with this bill and to support the bill and urge my colleagues to support the second reading and eventual passage. The bill is important because, just like the lead debate stated, we have about 23 federal medical centers that were established across the country, but without a legal backing. The consequence of such is that there are what I would call policy somersaults as regards the operations of these centers. You see some of the centers that have enough facilities, enough manpower to even be termed a teaching hospital. But because the legal framework did not state the standard in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of the manpower and services, they remain like that, and it becomes the whims and caprices of the policymaker and the Federal Ministry of Health. And the consequences in terms of funding allocation, federal medical centers receive less funds compared to teaching hospitals. Last year when we conducted our oversight, we were at Federal Medical Center Owerri. And when we went around the hospitals, I asked the board and that this hospital has more than enough consultants. They have many professors. They have many facilities. Why is it not a teaching hospital? Because the running cost that is allocated to Federal Medical Center is far lower than what is given to a teaching hospital. But because the law did not state that if you acquire a certain level, you will be termed a teaching hospital, they cannot. So therefore, Mr. President, if we pass this law, it will not only provide standard legal framework stating the infrastructures, the manpower requirement. It will also enable us to be able to allocate resources appropriately to all these centers. And as the lead debater has said, probably through this law, we'll be able to come up with a better way of funding and equipping as well as allocating human resources to the centers. I therefore so support that we will support the second reading of this important bill and subsequently pass it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Bala Ibn Al.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, the additional reason as to why issues of this nature must receive the attention of the Senate as quickly as possible is to ensure that all institutions of government are governed by law. We cannot continue to operate a democracy where public funds are disbursed to institutions that are not recognized by law. That is not right. And therefore, when bills of this nature come, I feel inclined to support the bills and to go further to say that all available institutions of government that draw funds from the federation account in whatever form or manner should have an enabling law, so that as we stay here, we know that we are discharging the responsibilities of legislatures who will perform the functions of their office in accordance with the law. When we sit down, Mr. President, the chief whip himself has become a problem to...
Well, he is learning the job, so these are teething problems.
So with the greatest respect, Mr. President, you remember in the Senate we made an attempt to put a committee together that will look at all the institutions of government that were established by fiat, so that we can give them the legal framework to work. Because when we proceed to allocate funds to these bodies, we are working against the oath of office we have taken, disposing public money to institutions of government that are not backed by law. So I think that, again, it may not be out of place if a small committee of this Senate is put in place to look at all those institutions that are not governed by law, so that we will perform the essential responsibility of putting them in order. So in conclusion, I second the second reading of this bill, and I urge that my colleagues do the same. Thank you.
Is there anyone against the bill? I'll put the question now. Those in favor that this bill be now read a second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to provide for the legal framework to establish the Federal Medical Center and for related matters, 2021, SB 636, second reading.
A bill for an act to provide for the legal framework to establish the Federal Medical Centers and for related matters, 2021, second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Health to report back within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the third order of the day is the second reading of Federal University of Technology Special Oyo Town, Oyo State Establishment Etc. Bill 2021. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Wednesday, 4th March 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Teslim Folari to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Senator Teslim Kolawale Folarin.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. My name remains Teslim Folari, and I represent Oyo State, Oyo Central. Mr. President, I move that I be allowed to proceed with the lead debate on the general principles of a bill for an act to upgrade the Federal College of Education Special Oyo to Federal University of Special Needs Education Oyo State to provide training and teaching instruction in every aspect of special needs education and such other fields of applied learning, leading to the award of degree and relevant to the needs of the development of education in Nigeria, matters of administration and discipline of students, and for related matters. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, it is my honor and privilege to lead this debate as I seek your valued support. This bill seeks to upgrade the Federal College of Education Special Oyo to the Federal University of Special Needs Education Oyo State, Nigeria. Mr. President, education is an essential tool for Mr. President, education is an essential tool for development, and any government desirous of attaining greatness and sustainable development ought to provide qualitative education for all its citizens to enable them to compete in the globalized economy. Mr. President, special needs education and training helps ensure that we cater for the most vulnerable in society and harness the potential of all our citizens. The neglect of special needs education is robbing Nigeria of the contribution of the graduates from that sphere of the society. Therefore, a university devoted to developing special needs education in Nigeria will enhance our educational system further. Presently, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the alarming truth is that there is no single dedicated special needs university in our country. What we have are 4 universities in Nigeria with fully fledged departments of special education. These are within the universities of Ibadan, Jos, Calabar, and Kwara State University, Ilorin. Special units attached departments of educational studies also exist within the universities of Nigeria, Nsukka, Bayero, Kano, and Uyo. It is factual that these departments at the universities of Ibadan, Jos, Calabar, and Kwara State University have limited areas of specialization compared to that of the Federal College of Education Special Oyo. For example, the Federal College of Education Special Oyo offers courses for students with physical and health impairment, communication and behavioral disorder, and rehabilitation education in addition to the available programs at the mentioned universities. Justification and need for the bill. The need to upgrade the Federal College of Education Special Oyo to a Federal University of Special Needs Education operating a fully fledged university structure, running NCE and degree programs simultaneously cannot be overemphasized. The reasons include: 1, there is currently no fully fledged Federal University for Special Education in the country. 2, the Federal College of Education Special Oyo currently runs all the wide ranges of courses up to NCE level that will be run by a Federal University for Special Education. 3, the college already has the necessary infrastructure on ground to upgrade into a university. 4, the college has produced thousands of NCE graduates and currently has over 13,800 students on our roll. Many of the students we know wish to make a career in special education and or related supportive professions, but restricted from doing so by the non-availability of courses of higher studies. Year after year, a good number of them, over 1,500, apply for direct entry admission into the very few departments of special education in Nigerian universities. Only a fraction, Mr. President, is admitted due to limited spaces. 5, the college runs the widest range of courses in this area of education. Presently, there is additional need for manpower to service the new departments of adults and non-formal education and special education in other colleges of education in Nigeria as mandated by the NCCE. 6, special education units found in universities like Nsukka, Calabar, Bayero, and Uyo can only admit about 100 candidates in a year due to the small size of the departments and the very restricted numbers allowed for direct entries. For example, Mr. President, University of Ibadan Department of Special Education, which is one of the 4 universities, only offered less than 20 candidates direct entry admission in the 2018-2019 session. The implication is that most of our graduates are turned down in spite of the fact that they are well qualified for admission. 7, the present special education departments and units in the universities all put together can only meet about 5 to 10% of the personnel needs in special education at the basic and post-basic levels of education in the country, as their total student enrollment is constrained and will be less than 10% of the student enrollment in the Federal College of Education Special Oyo. There is therefore the need to have a university entirely devoted for special education studies to produce special education personnel in various areas of specialization in sufficient numbers to meet the staff requirements. 8, a United Nations report suggests that 1 in 10 in Nigeria has some form of disability or special needs. To put in context, Mr. President, that means about 21 million Nigerians are living with one form of disability or special needs. If as estimated 16% of our population are children of school, then about 3.3 million Nigerian children of school age have a form of disability or special need. We cannot afford to neglect the needs of this number of citizens. 9, in Nigeria today, the Federal College of Education Special Oyo also has the highest concentration of disabled students that could be found in any educational establishment. 10, over the years, the college has produced a large number of special education teachers, including those with disabilities. These categories of students find it extremely difficult to secure admission into the conventional universities, and the few that do experience the categories of students find it extremely difficult to secure admission into the conventional universities, and the few that do experience difficulties in adapting to the learning environment, which is not tailored to meet their special needs. Hence, the need for the upgrading of the Federal College of Education Special Oyo to Federal University for Special Need Education, which has the most favorably learning environment for such category of learners into university special needs education. I touched on the financial implications, Mr. President. There is none, as the existing structures should cater for the new university if approved. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I cannot overemphasize the importance of this bill to the growth of our educational and economic sector, and I plead that you support it, allow it to be read a second time, and refer to the Senate Standing Committee for further legislative action. Thank you for listening.
Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Robert Ajayi Borofis, representing Ondo North Senatorial District. I rise to second the motion moved by the distinguished senator that this bill be read the second time. Personally, I've been involved with the handicapped children. Once I was teaching in the school, I was teaching general science to the deaf in Methodist Secondary School, Bodija. And I was also a member of the Board of Trustees of the School for Deaf in Ibadan. And one of the problems we had was that at that center, there were students who were qualified to have university education. And there was nowhere they could have that education in Nigeria. We had to work hard to get them into universities in the United States of America. And some of these people came back very successful and were able to contribute to the development of education in Nigeria. I'm aware of the existence of the College of Education Special requirement of special needs in Oyo, and it has contributed a lot to the development of special education, not only in producing special education teachers, but also admitting physically challenged students. And some of them are very brilliant when you interact with them. When I was teaching general science in the secondary school, I discovered that they are very, very brilliant. And I think upgrading the College of Education or your special needs, I think it's called special education or special needs, will definitely provide avenue for these Nigerians who are equally endowed, like any of us, to have opportunity to have a career in their chosen area. So, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I plead with us to support this bill that will be read the second time. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Ahmed Adamalero.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, I rise to lend my voice to this important bill sponsored by my good friend, Senator Plenary. Mr. President, it is really alarming to hear that we have well over 21 million people that are physically challenged and they are looking for educational facilities. They are looking for educational opportunities rather. Education is the bedrock for development. We should do whatever is humanly possible to provide them with educational institutions where they can go and develop themselves and contribute to the development of our country. The existing facilities we have are overstretched as we had. The universities that are offering special education are very much limited, and they cannot admit the number of students that are looking for admission. So I second or support the second reading of this important bill, and I urge all my colleagues to do the same. Thank you very much.
Senator Oluremi Tinubu.
Thank you, Mr. President. Oluremi Tinubu, representing Lagos Central Senatorial District. I wholeheartedly support this bill and to commend the mover of this bill for bringing this type of bill to this hallowed chamber. Being an educationist of long standing, I can tell you that most disabilities, if we say a child has a disability, it has to be seen, it has to be visible. But a lot of children, like the mover of this bill said, that 1 out of 10 Nigerians have, especially children, have learning disability. I will take dyslexia for an example. It took Nigerians a long time to be able to diagnose learning disability, which is dyslexia. And in a school like this, I believe that it will give this nation, and especially Nigerians, and the necessary tool to be able to diagnose rightly. Most of the children that come from privileged backgrounds are the only ones who can treat their children. And especially, there are a lot of mental ailments there is schizophrenia, and which are wrongly diagnosed. And at times, these children will need the proper diagnosis so that they can get the proper education they need. So a school like this will go a long way to prepare the next generation of Nigerians. I thank you, Mr. President, for giving me the opportunity to speak. Thank you, sir.
Is anybody against the bill? Point of order. Senator Abalai Nala.
Thank you very much, sir. The reason why this point of order is essential, sir.
What order is it?
Sabotaging me. Is that leader? Mr. President, Section 42 of our Constitution says, and if I have your permission, it's important to read, because the point I'm going to make to this order is based on the debate.
Okay, you may read.
Mr. President, Section 42(1) says, a citizen of Nigeria of a particular community, ethnic group, place of origin, sex, religion, political opinion shall not by reason only that he is such a person be subjected either expressly by or in the practical application of any law in force in Nigeria or any executive or administrative action of the government to disabilities or restriction to which citizens of Nigeria of other communities, ethnic group, place of origin, circumstances of birth, sex, religion, or political opinions are not made subject to. But the most important one is section 2. No person of Nigeria, no citizen of Nigeria shall be subjected to any disability or deprivation merely by the reason of circumstances of his birth. Now, if we take the population of people living with special needs in this country, and we look at the number of federal universities that have been built for those who are normal, it's a mismatch. So if the Constitution is saying that we must not discriminate against these people, and the debate has so far shown that even if the Senate proceed, and I so wish that we proceed to pass this bill so that the College of Education of Special in Oyo can be upgraded to a federal university. The debate in the bill has said it's not even sufficient. So what it means is that for us to meet the constitutional requirement of this, the Senate again should act in its wisdom to look at additional place where it's convenient, so that in addition to the one in Oyo, we will make another one so that more people can participate, people with disability can have access to education. That's why I brought this constitutional order. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you very much, distinguished Bala Ibn Allah Kebu South. But of course, my learned colleague, you know what to do to give life to that part of the constitutional provision. That is, you can bring bills for the establishment of this. Is there anybody against the bill? Anybody against the bill? Observation.
Mr. President, my name is Sam Egu. I represent Ebonyi North Senatorial District. Well, I tend to support the bill. I want to make an observation. Mr. President, my observation is that we have in almost all the universities the statement made by the last speaker that universities are created for normal Nigerians is not true. When a university is created, it's both made for those who are physically normal and those that have challenges. No university is made for normal people in this country. What we have is that there are faculties and departments that specifically address students that have special needs. And the moment we come to talk about upgrading an institution for those for special needs, university for special needs, we should also know the implications. One, these are our brothers that are handicapped or have special needs. Don't even want to be pitied. They don't want to be isolated. That is why each time you see them, they'll tell you, support us by giving us opportunities, not by giving us, segregating against us. Having that university will mean that we are segregating against our brothers that are challenged. That's which is discriminatory. What we should do, if we really want to support them, is to make sure that federal government grants them automatic scholarship for whichever faculty they want to go in this country. Let them go free of charge. Let them be given special provision like scholarship or bursary. But the moment you want to create a university for them alone, you are discriminating, you are also segregating, and they don't want to be so segregated. So that is the issue, Mr. President. I am not against this bill by way of saying that we don't have to support them. The support they need is giving them opportunities like financial support, creating the enabling environment, and not putting all of them together in a special university. They don't even want that. So, Mr. President, that's my observation. Thank you very much.
God bless you.
Thank you very much, distinguished Senator Samegu, former Minister of Education. Is there anybody against the bill, please? Okay, I will call for second reading. Those in favor of the bill, that this bill be now read a second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to establish the Federal University of Special Needs Education, UYO, to provide training and teaching instruction in every aspect of special needs education and such other fields of applied learning leading to award of degree and relevant to the needs of the development of education in Nigeria, matters of administration and discipline of students, and for related matters, 2021, SB 636, second reading.
A bill for an act to establish the Federal University of Special Needs Education, UYO, to provide training and teaching instruction in every aspect of special needs education and such other fields of applied learning leading to award of degree and relevant to the needs of the development of education in Nigeria, matters of administration and discipline of students, and for related matters, 2021, second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Tertiary Institutions and TED Fund and to report back within 4 weeks. Distinguished colleagues, before I call the leader, let me thank you for the various interventions. I have taken particular note of what the intervention by Senator Samegu, that we need to also look at the arguments he puts across. Most of our citizens who are disabled really prefer that we empower them rather than pity them. So that one is a good argument, and this goes the same way with this Almajiri school. You create institutions and you say this is Almajiri school. It's already stigmatized. It means if you are not Almajiri, you will not go. And education particularly requires that everybody is there, because the intermingling of people itself is education and enlightenment. What I will advise here is, in our present institutions, we should be working hard to ensure that we provide some special means and measures of ensuring that those with special needs are properly taken care of. New buildings, new structures must reflect that. In fact, our Committee on Tertiary Education and even the other part of the Committee, Basic Education, should engage with the Federal Ministry of Education. What plans do we have for future developments of our institutions to provide for those that need special needs? Because we can't continue to put infrastructure that does not take care of their needs. We did that in the 60s, 70s, 80s. Now we know that we need to provide for them. So in normal, the so-called universities or institutions for normal people, we should ensure that we provide for those that have disabilities that require special needs. And of course, we create the institutions. But I agree with the submission of Senator Samegu that maybe just creating special needs schools just for them like this is segregational. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fourth order of the day is the second reading of the Casualization Prohibition Bill 2021. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this distinguished chamber on Wednesday, 4th March 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Patrick Ayo Akinyelure to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Distinguished Senator Patrick Akinyelure.
Thank you, Mr. President. distinguished colleagues, my name remains Senator Joaquin Elure, representing Ondo Central. Mr. President, I rise to move that a bill for an act to provide for the prohibition of casualization in all forms of employment in the private and public sector in Nigeria and for related matter. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, permit me to lead this debate on the general principle of this bill. The bill for an act.
What happened to your mask?
In the private sector and public sector in Nigeria and for related matters. This bill, Mr. President, was read for the first time on the floor of the Hallowed Chamber of the Senate on 4th March 2020. Mr. President, dear colleagues, casualization of Nigerian graduates in the Nigerian labor market has become a subject of great concern as more workers continue to groan under this immoral strategy of cutting costs by employers rendering them inferior to their counterpart in other countries of the world. Mr. President, statistics from the Nigerian Labour Congress shows that many workers in the telecommunication, oil and gas sectors are engaged as casual laborers by the employers of labor. Other sectors with thousands of casual laborers include mining, steel, banking, and insurance. In all these sectors, Mr. President, stop outsourcing and casualization have become the order of the day. As such, workers no longer have regularized employment terms, and therefore, Nigerian graduates are treated as second-class citizens in their own country of origin, while foreigners from underdeveloped countries, from Asia, India, Pakistan, Lebanon, etc., with less qualification to Nigerian graduates are placed as managers above Nigerian graduates in many private and even government established in Nigeria. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, let me crave your indulgence to highlight the background of this bill, which I believe will not only provide a justification for this laudable legislative initiative, but will also motivate the National Assembly to accelerate the legislative process in passing this bill to law. Background. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, casualization is a working arrangement that is not permanent in nature and does not fall within the traditional standard employer-employee relationship. Workers in this arrangement usually do not have a permanent job status. They do not get the same pay and benefits as their regular permanent counterpart doing the same job and working the same hours. Casualization is usually practiced in work occupations in which the demand for employment is highly variable, such as port work, farm migratory work, and other jobs for unskilled intermittent nature. It is a form of involuntary servitude for a period. It is making work less secure. The changing of work practices so that workers are employed on a freelance and occasional basis instead of being offered full-time and contract. Mr. President, colleagues of this chamber, the scourge of cancellation of employment in Nigeria is gaining ground in an unprecedented proportion, intensity, and scale. The increase in the spread and gradual acceptance of this labor practice in the Nigerian labor market has become an issue of great concern to stakeholders. Therefore, Mr. President, employers of labor is increasing filling position in the organization that are supposed to be permanent skilled workers with casual employees. The trend has been largely attributed to the increasing desperation of employers to cut down organizational costs and thereby taking advantage of large number of unemployed graduates roaming the streets of our major cities in Nigeria. Mr. President, this colleague, engagement of large attendance of the workforce on the basis of casualization has become worrisome in the Nigerian labor markets. Mr. President, let me re-emphasize that on daily basis, these workers are recruited at the gate and fired at will. In spite of the fact that these workers continue to generate enormous profit for the various establishments they work for, they remain classified as casuals and subjected to deplorable and inhuman working conditions. Apart from the fact that these categories of workers are working under state of uncertainties, casualization also reveals a brutal work growth process similar to slave labor. Mr. President, in banking and insurance industry, for instance, Many young graduates, particularly female, are employed as marketers and giving unrealistic customer deposit ceiling target, running to millions. They are hired and fired at will when such unrealistic targets are not met. The female among them who are desperate in keeping their jobs turn to a harlotry and sex slavery, moving from one office to the other looking for invisible customers who had tons of fun to enable them meet their target. Mr. President, it is high time this evil and devilish act is stopped. Mr. President, let me again remind all the colleagues in this hollow chamber the rigorous paths through many graduates of Nigerian tertiary institutions, that many of them spend over 5 to 6 years for a 4-year HND BSc degree program. And after all, the sacrifice put into education for a minimum period of 25 years at the forward of this institution before graduation. Nigerian graduates, when under normal conditions, are to be employed as skilled workers on permanent basis and be breadwinners for their families, are afterwards subjected to casual work on temporary basis without benefit to sustain their standard of living. This bill, Mr. President, when passed into law, we put Nigerian graduates in their rightful place to add value to Nigerian economy in all ramifications. Mr. President, Nigerian graduates employed as casual workers face precarious conditions in the workplace and society today, and are effectively classified as new set of slaves and underclass in Nigeria. Casual workers is often temporary. Casual work is often temporary with uncertain wages, long hours, no job security. It is disheartening that Nigerian graduate workers are under pressure from corporate practices that seek to undercut their hard-fought victories at the bargaining table and replace with good job, i.e., jobs with benefit, training, and security, with various forms of insecure and low-paid contract. Short-term and temporary job is said to be addressed by the passage of this bill. Mr. President, structure and outline of the bill. This bill consists of 8 clauses and schedule containing 2 supplemental provisions as follows. Clause 1 deals with provision of casualization. Clause 2 deals with a confirmation of full employment. Clause 3 deals with application. Clause 4 deals with offenses. Clause 5 deals with penalties. Clause 6 deals with regulations. Clause 7 deals with interpretation. And Clause 7 deals with citation. Schedule 1, agriculture and other seasonal employment. Object to the bill, Mr. President. This bill seeks to 1, prohibit calculation of employment in both private and public sector of the Nigerian economy. 2, protect vulnerable workers against unfair labor practices by way of casualization. C, impose a legal duty on employers of labor, both in public and private sector of the Nigerian economy, to convert sexual employment to permanent status after 3 months of engagement on passage of this bill to law. D, criminalize casualization of employment where it is contrary to the provisions of this bill and punish same accordingly. Vest powers on the minister to make regulation for giving full effect to the provision of this bill. Further justification, punishment of the order. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, prohibiting casualization is necessary to save vulnerable Nigerians from the evil of involuntary servitude. The deplorable conditions under which these workers are subjected to in their workplace leaves much to be desired. More worrisome in the fact that, like on an evil growth, casualization of workers is spreading its tentacles to all sectors of the Nigerian economy. Workers have continued to pay the price. On a daily basis, they are recruited. Their labor maximally utilized and fired at the discretion of the business operators, with no indefeasible and effective legal option available to redress it. Mr. President, the passage of this bill will significantly increase the percentage of taxable adults within the system, thus increase the internal general revenue of the government, the federation, and all the state governments where they are resident. The certainly available data. According to a recent report by the Campaign for Democratic and Workers' Rights in Nigeria, the number of casual workers in Nigeria is 45% of the entire working population. This means that a factory of 20 workers, 9 of them are casual workers. The report continues. With the ambition of the employer to reduce cost of production, this number will continue to increase, particularly in the period of economic recession. Cost implication. Mr. President, the legislative proposal seeking to a bill for an act to provide for the prohibition of casualization in all forms of employment in the private and public sectors in Nigeria and for economic matters has no financial implication to the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Conclusion. Mr. President, this colleague, let me conclude by reminding us that it is our duty to, in accordance with Section 1634 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999 as amended, ensure dignity of the human person by protecting Nigeria against exploitation and servitude in the form of casualization. It is in that spirit that I encourage all my district colleagues in this hallowed chamber, giving maximum support to the party of this bill in the interest of qualified Nigerians still wallowing in jeopardy as a result of being engaged. I so move, Mr. President, and submit for consideration and approval of the district colleagues of Federal Republic of Nigeria to support.
Distinguished Senator Oriolo Aderele Ademi.
Thank you, Excellency. I'm Senator Adelere Adeyemi Oriolowo, representing Osun West Senatorial District. I stand to second this all-important bill that has to do with a form of employment that has really affected our economy, education, and the quality of workforce in this country. I want to say that this particular form of employment, casualization of employers, is one of the trial form of employment that has really affected us. Others are the form of employment that give unequal treatment to workers of the same qualification, experience, and work background. And the other one is the one that gives unequal treatment and unequal remuneration to workers from one workplace doing similar work in one place of work to another one. It has affected our economy in the sense that the workers we have in this country, in a way, because they are looking for work, they will take any form of employment that they are given, but they will not be able to give it their best because they are demoralized and unable to work as expected. So, in this light, I want to say that it is a time that we abolish this form of employment, this casualization and unequal treatment to workers of the same experience, the same background. I want to cite an example of this. It has caused a lot of crises in many ministries. Like if you have a doctor who has spent 7 years in the university, he will come in to be on grade level 12, whereas those who have been there for 5 years, maybe they spent 5 years in the university, when they come in, they will be on level 8. And by the time that one comes in, after 2 years, it will be on level 12. And for those who have spent 5 years, they will have to wait for not less than 8 years before they can get to that level 12. Forgetting that those who have spent 2 years on the job, they have work experience, which those who are in the school did not get. So all these inequalities in the treatment of our workforce, I want to suggest that we find a way of abolishing it, and I want to support this bill 100%. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Sumata Adeyemi Sadona, former comrade.
Leader Kanajiwa.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, let me thank you for recognizing me as the Sadana of Yobe and Yobe State.
No, distinguished Senator Sumata Adeyemi, I didn't say you are Sadona of Yobe. I didn't want to divulge where you are, Sadona, but since you have decided to go to Yobe, I'll take you back to your destination. You are Sadona of Kuchugoro.
Your Excellency, this is one of the reasons why we are here. We are here as legislators to essentially and fundamentally make laws that will enhance the overall development of our nation. We're here to make this country a better place for everyone, irrespective of his background, as long as he is so qualified and a good citizen standing for the nation. Casualization, Mr. President, is a system of a white man collar's job, or what I can term the modern day slavery. It is an oppression, a debasement, and indeed a very moral system of highly qualified Nigerians who came from humble homes. In essence, Mr. President, a good percentage of those who have been captured into these categories of workers were people who were actually educated, qualified, but they come from less privileged homes and personalities of the nation. Mr. President, it is just inexplicable to have some of our citizens being captured under this devilish and wicked system of employment. And you see them working for years without any future for them where they have been so employed. I want to commend my colleague for bringing this bill. And I'm not in doubt that all of us will support this bill. It is just inexplicable, especially, Mr. President, in the banking industry in Nigeria, where you see girls who are educated, intelligent, they are perpetually put under casualization, and they push them to the elites for immorality so that they could be made to cover money for them. It is worse in the banking industry, Mr. President. And I want to say, Mr. President, that you will make history along with all of us if we insist that this system is devilish and it must not be allowed to stand any longer in Nigeria. You see young, educated girls who have been pushed into following men just for them to be able to get some money they call deposit by all systems, including some of the men. There are men who are into so many things because they have been under casualization. In the oil industry, it's the same story, Mr. President. These are very rich sector of the country, of the economy. That you cannot tell me why they should have workers for years on casualization, Mr. President. It is simply slavery. And I'm not in doubt, Mr. President, that you will support and put your weight behind this bill. Let it be passed into law, and let us have a new system, a new Nigeria, emerging from a system of employment that will guarantee the future of coming generation. Today, Mr. President, most of the youths you see today, they do not even have any future because this casualization is just a system of keeping some people as slaves in the industry. I submit, Mr. President, that whatever it will take us is a very straightforward bill. Let this bill be supported and let us pass it into law and stop the enslavement of our youth, our younger generation in the banking industry, in the oil industry, and some very few other industries. But this is a system that is more pronounced in the banking industry and in the oil industry. I so submit, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, former comrade. Distinguished Senator Mikhail Tokumbo Aburi.
Thank you, Mr. President, and distinguished colleagues. My name is Tokumbo Aburi, representing Lagos East Senatorial District. Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, I think that I have an observation regarding what has just been presented. And my observation would derive from, number one, I think it's important that we make a clarification between casualization and contract services. I think it's very, very important. If the issue is around casualization, I am particularly within the public sector space, I will support. But in the private sector space, I think we have to be very, very careful. Number one, the unemployment rate in this country today is tending towards about 30%. Now, what you find in the private sector is that they are rational entrepreneurs. And rational entrepreneurs will also want to seek for efficiency and effectiveness in their business. And in an environment where unemployment rate is very high, and equally in an environment where the private sector on their own, they provide almost all the needs that that ordinarily government should provide. You know, if we go this route, part of what we are going to find is, number one, we will continue to increase the unemployment rate. Because what the private sector will do is, number one, they will, the normal job for a man today can be increased for 3 or 4 people. So the issue around contract services, they are well defined in the private sector. So I would want us to please be very careful as to how we define this casualization. The contract jobs there are clearly defined, and they are very specific as to the roles, and they play a critical role in even absorbing part of the people that are already in the unemployed job market.
So, are you against the bill? Are you against the bill?
Against the bill? Oh, so my mic is on. Yeah. So I'm saying that we should moderate. It should be amended. For the public sector, I agree, but for the private sector, I think we should be very careful. Otherwise, we will increase the unemployment rate in this country.
Okay. Senator Uche Lillian Ekunifi.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Uche Lillian Ekunifi. Mr. President, I represent Anambra Central. First of all, Mr. President, let me commend the mover of this bill for initiating this bill at this point in time, and also to align myself to the last speaker, to the second last speaker, Senator Smart Adeyemi. Mr. President, I solely support this bill because casualization of employment in both private and public sector in Nigeria has diminished the standard of service in this country drastically. Mr. President, for instance, in the hospitals, you will see a cleaner. After 2 years of going to the same hospital, you see that cleaner being a nurse. After 2 years, you see the same nurse now converted to a pharmacist giving drugs. Mr. President, casualization of employment in Nigeria has actually reduced the quality of services we get from our establishment in the country. A situation where a secondary school as a certificate will be doing a job of a graduate in an establishment must be condemned. We must have a legal process of employing and engaging people in our public and private establishments. And I believe that this is what this bill seeks to, achieve. If we do not have a proper process of engaging citizens of this country, we will continue to abuse the dignity of human beings in this country. We must give our people security, we must give our people the right to the dignity, we must give our people the sense of belonging to the right establishment. Mr. President, the essence of being here is actually to make laws that will impact positively on the life of our people. And this is one of those laws. So I support this bill, and I hope our colleagues will support this bill because of the merits of this particular bill. Thank you.
Senator Biodun.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Let me also commend the mover of the bill. Mr. President, if you remember, in the 8th Senate, we tried vigorously to ensure that this bill was assented to, but it wasn't, and it's coming back again. So this time around, I believe we must do a lot of work to ensure that it passes. Mr. President, it is important to note that casualization lowers the self-esteem of anyone. And the minute you lower self-esteem, those people never become full members of our society. And there is no doubt that we need to legislate to ensure that there is a balance. Mr. President, I have a personal experience. I have a son that came back from England after his master's. I wasn't able to get him a job, so he went on the internet and got a job. And he told me I just got a job. I was elated that I was able to get himself something to do. One day I called him and I said, how much do you earn? You should be able to put part of it into electricity or something in the home. He said, that's not possible, Mom. So I said, why? He said, I earn 40,000. 40,000 naira. For so many years of education, for so much that has been expended on him. And that is what many people suffer in Nigeria. In the banking industry, like everybody has said, our girls have been turned into what we cannot imagine. Most of them have been asked to look for funds. And when they come to us, I always tell them, I do not even have the funds to eat. How can I have funds to keep with you in the bank? And they will never be promoted if they don't bring in such funds. And this is a banking industry that is privately owned, yes, but has made so much profit. And from the profit, they could at least take the few that they can manage properly, rather than take a lot that they will be given pittance. And that is where we are, Mr. President. We need to have a legal framework that will ensure that casualization does not exist. If you must take workers, take the number you can on proper emolument. But Mr. President, all this boils down to one thing. Government has not done its part well. Nobody can come out of the university and boast that in 6 months or 1 year, they'll be able to get jobs. And that is where we are. Creation of jobs is most essential. If we had jobs in quantum, nobody will be doing this to our children, to our graduates, everywhere. And I believe, Mr. President, the best way to go is to pass this bill, let it go for public hearing. At public hearing, let everybody have a voice. And then we tell government, the time to create jobs is now. And that must be the reason for why this bill will pass. Thank you very much, Mr.
Ajibola Basiru.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleague. My name is Dr. Surajuddin Ajibola Bashiru. I represent Osun Central Senatorial District. Yes, much has been said about challenges and problem of casualization. And in as much as from a motive perspective, it sounds very popular to support it wholeheartedly. But we must remind ourselves of the fact that we are running a liberal economy, and the legal regime for labor in the context of private sector is based on the principle of laissez-faire, that is the contractual framework that have been entered from the party. And our courts consistently have made a separation between mere ordinary contract of master-servant relationship and that of employment with statutory labor. When a person is employed by a governmental agency that is regulated by law, the employment is said to be of statutory labor, which means that it has to comply with the standard and required handbook. But when it comes to private sector employment, even whether you call it casualization or abolition of casualization, we need to be careful, because the Supreme Court has consistently said that any person that has the power to hire also have the power to fire. In that context, therefore, we must make a distinction in making the prohibition between employment in the public sector and employment in the private sector. Secondly, too, we must also be able to look at the whole picture and totality of the nature of activity in the private sector. There are some businesses that people have to be engaged on the basis of the nature. Senator Sonny, you are not the Senate President. Mr. Chairman. I think some.
You have to round up now. Distinguished.
Sonny Musa.
Chairman, you may round up, please.
Thank you, my brother. From you have to be careful. It is these old senators that are disturbing us. As I was saying, we need to make a distinction between private sector, public sector, the economy, and the nature of businesses for which people are engaged. So that rather than make a blanket abolition of casualization, it should be contextual. Thank you, Mr. President.
The DSP.
Thank you, Mr. President. Obi Omo Agege, Delta Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, I rise in support that this bill be read for the second time. Mr. President, in taking this position, I've had the privilege of listening to the arguments. Mr. President, I've had the privilege and the benefit, Mr. President, of listening to the prior speakers. And most especially, Dr. Ajibola, I agree with that distinction, Mr. President, that a decision be made between the private sector, casualization, and the public sector, for the reasons he has advanced. But Mr. President, my main concern here, frankly, notwithstanding the position taken by Senator Lujimi, frankly, has to deal with the public sector. So many times in the past in this chamber, Mr. President, we've received a lot of petitions from the chairman of Committee on Ethics, most especially from the oil sector in Delta State, my constituency, for example, where the Nigerian Gas Company, NNPC and others have engaged several of our constituents, as casual workers. Now, ordinarily, Mr. President, to the extent that they even created jobs for our people, we are happy about that, just to that extent. But the problem now arises, Mr. President, where an opportunity now arises for them to do a formal employment of workers, rather than consider those who are casual workers first, who have been in their books. They ignore them, retain them as casual workers, and go to retain people who are brand new, from whatever source. And that is what I am against. And I hope that is what one of the reasons, one of the areas targeted, by this bill. So to that extent, Mr. President, I rise in support that this bill be read for a second time. So during public hearing, some of us, can have an opportunity, to go in there and call this very system, for what it is. Thank you, Mr. President.
Brian Hassan Adeja. Mohammed Sani Musa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. President, my name is Mohammed Sani Musa, Niger East Senatorial District. I think we need to be a bit careful with this bill. Reasons are not far-fetched. Both in the public sector and the private sector, when you are talking about casualization, there are certain organizations, even in the public sector, that require the services of casual workers, ad hoc workers. I give a simple example with Independent National Electoral Commission. When issues of election, when election period comes, they engage close to about 900 700 to 900,000 people who they engage all over Nigeria for the purpose and conduct of the election. The same thing, especially we that comes out from the private sector as well. You will see that a lot of manufacturing firms today, if they said they are going to engage everybody as a permanent employee, even the graduates, because there are certain functions that just unskilled personnel cannot be able to handle. You need to have somebody that has a requisite qualification. So I think we should be careful, because if you engage, you will either make that organization to face serious litigations, especially in the aviation sector, because there is no way you can operate in the aviation industry without casual level. Both graduates and undergraduates, non-graduates. So I think we should seriously look into this bill before we go ahead. Thank you.
Senator Michael Opemi Bamidele.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, I'm Michael Opemi Bamidele. I represent Ekiti Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, the issue before the Senate at this time actually is whether or not this bill being debated should pass for a second reading. Mr. President, I am in support that the bill passes for a second reading. And in doing that, I'm taking that position without prejudice to the various issues and concerns that have been raised by some of our colleagues. And for me, this will only go to emphasize the need for us to ensure that once this bill passes the second reading, both the economic team of this distinguished Senate as well as the legal team should work together with the sponsor of this bill to ensure that some of these concerns are addressed. Some of the issues being raised here are actually already addressed in the labor law. Part of the problem is of implementation or enforcement. But we have to be able to find a meeting point. But as to whether or not the bill should go, I feel very strongly, and I canvass so strongly, that we should allow this bill to pass for a second reading. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Brango.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. My name is Senator Ibrahim Gogo. Ordinarily, Your Excellency, this is a very, very good bill. But unfortunately, there are quite a lot of things that we have to look at. Number one, government is supposed to be the non-employer of labor. But unfortunately, government has relinquished its own responsibility. It's shirking away from that. The only employer of labor today is the private sector. And by the time you enforce this law, there will be more layoffs, because I'm sure the private sector will certainly refuse to employ people because of this kind of thing. Because if you tell them that they have to stop the casualization, they will quickly say, okay, if that is the case, we will take the only number we have, then the other people will go. That's one problem. Then the second problem, there is no way we can stop casualization. Why? Because people who are getting some of these jobs are ad hoc given. Because you will get a job of about 10 billion. Then you will have a period of time during which to finish this job again. So which means you will have to hire the labor that is going to do that job, after which then of course they will go. Because you cannot take them permanently. So I think we have to look at some of these issues. In as much as the bill is good, but we have to look at some of these caveats and then see how we can sort out this problem. Otherwise, we will increase to the number of unemployed people we have in this country. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Senator Baro Jibrin, and then we round up.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Senator Baro Jibrin. I represent Kano North. Mr. President, I stand to support this bill in its entirety. We need to protect our citizens. We need to protect our youth. We know the practice by businesses to always cut costs. Every business wants to cut costs. Whether that business is situated in Nigeria, or in America, or in Russia, or in UK, anywhere. Those areas that we're talking about, like the developed countries, they have strong laws that are used to support and protect youth and the entire workers of those nations. If not, assuming everything is left unregulated, not being supervised like the way we have in this country, they will do the same thing. Therefore, we need to look at our laws, redo our laws just like what this bill is seeking to do, to make sure that we protect our youth. You know, the fact is this: in every country these days, you have what we call graduate trainees. By the time graduated from universities, they are placed as graduate trainees. I mean, as a management trainees. They call them management trainees, not graduate, management trainees. Where from day one, they are being trained to become managers in the future. Now, if you have casualization everywhere, how do you train these youths to become managers and CEOs in the future? You cannot do that. It is every business wants to cut costs. So sometimes this attitude of casualization of workers are not due to necessities, but they are being brought up, they are being created in order to cut costs. While we allow our youth to become unproductive in the future in their entire lives, that is not acceptable. We must create a law where we stop this casualization of our workers in this country. Because it's not good for our youth, it's not good for the people of our country, it's not good for the workers of our country. So I support this bill, and I urge my colleagues to support this bill in order to protect our youth, to protect our entire workforce in this country. We cannot let them down. We should stand for them. I say so, Mr. President.
Anybody against the bill? Thank you very much, distinguished colleagues. Those in favor of the motion that this bill be now read a second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to amend the Federal University. Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to provide for the prohibition of casualization in all forms of employment in the private and public sector in Nigeria and for related matters, 2021, SB 329, first reading.
A bill for an act to provide for the prohibition of casualization in all forms of employment in the private and public sector in Nigeria and for related matters, 2021, second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Employment, Labor and Productivity to report back within 4 weeks. Thank you very much, distinguished colleagues. Let me also remark here that we have been able to pass the bill for the second reading. That gives the committee the opportunity to organize a public hearing. This public hearing is going to be an avenue for all shares of views and opinions to be canvassed. The fact remains that we need, employment for our people, especially our teeming youth, on one hand. On the other hand, we don't want discrimination. Those with the private sector experience in the chamber, I could see in their interventions, try to caution us that if we say no casualization at all, that some of our people could just be victims of layoffs. And of course we know what casualization brings. You don't have any entitlement outside of what you are given immediately. So we need to strike a balance to ensure that those who have to be employed on ad hoc basis, like one of our colleagues tried to show in ANEC recruitments, for example, during elections, and even in some of the sectors, don't suffer too much, but that we emphasize getting permanent and pensionable appointments or employment opportunities for our people. I think government has a role. While government cannot employ everyone, we have the responsibility to create the environment, the climate for employment opportunities to be available, either in government MDS or, because the economy is good, private sector could engage even more than the government could do. So we have the opportunity now to take this matter before the Nigerian public, and whatever we feel is the general view is what we should try to reflect when we finally pass the bill as we wish to, because this is a very, very important and indeed a very sensitive bill, because we have to have a balancing act. You say no casualization in Nigeria at all, there will be consequences, definitely. And if you don't say anything about it, some people will just be suffering, in the words of the sponsor of this bill, very devilish and evil treatments from those who employ them. Thank you very much, and with this, I think the Senate will have to step down the consideration with other things. Leader.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, in view of the need to observe some discretion because of the COVID threats, I would like to move a motion for the stepping down of all other items on our agenda today to another legislative day. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that we stand down the consideration of the remaining items on our order paper till another legislative day, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, having come to the end of today's proceedings, I would like to move a motion for the Senate to adjourn until Tuesday, 23rd February 2021 at 10 a.m. prompt. I so move.
Minority Leader.
I so second, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate do adjourn till Tuesday, 23rd day of February 2021 at 10 a.m. prompt, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate is hereby adjourned until Tuesday, 23rd day of February 2021 at 10 a.m. prompt. Thank you.